Hello everyone, this is SyntaxError and welcome back to another tutorial. In today's tutorial, we're going to be taking a look at the Lightning X. Now first of all, I'd like to point out that there are indeed timestamps in the description down below, so you can go ahead and skip to whatever section you want to skip to. And for the item showcase, if we go ahead and run the command give Lightning X, it will give us this Lightning X. And for the items function, if we go ahead and summon a Ravager for an example, if we hit it, it will strike lightning and it will deal custom damage as well. Now if we go ahead and summon a bit more, and we fly all the way here, and if we right click, it will hit all of the mobs in a 12 block radius, and it will deal and you will strike them with lightning and deal custom damage to them as well. So with it all said, let's get straight into the coding then. Alright, for the coding part, we are back in our custom items plugin, and the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a new Java class, and we are just going to name it item manager. So this is where we are going to be designing the item. Then the first thing that we can do is type public static item stack, and we are just going to name it lightning X. Then we are going to create a public static void, and we are going to name it init, which stands for initialization, and then we can leave it as it is for the time being. Now we can create a private static void and name it create lightning X. This is where we can start designing the item. So we can do item stack item equals to a new item stack, and in the brackets we're going to put the item material, which in this case would be a material.iron X. Then we can go ahead and put its amount as 1. Now we're going to get the item meta, so we're going to do item meta equals to item.getItem meta. Now we are going to move on with setting the display name of the item. So we're going to do meta.set display name, and in the brackets we're going to type our speech marks, and we can go into this website with all the Minecraft color codes and copy a color code symbol. The link to this website will be down below in the description. Then we can go ahead and paste that color code symbol into our codes, and we can put a 6, which stands for gold in color. Then we can go ahead and put the display name as lightning X. Now we're going to move on with the lore. So we're going to do list angle bracket string lore equals to a new array list. Then we're going to do lore.add to add lines of lore. Then we're going to paste in the color code again. Now the lines of lore is kind of lengthy, so yeah, the color code with a 7 stands for gray color. We can do strike your opponent with, then we can insert a new line of lore, paste the color code in with a 7 again, lightning every time you hit them, comma, then we can create another new line, paste in the color code again, dealing, and this time we paste in the color code symbol and put a C, which stands for red in color. Then we can put 1000, that's not 1000. And we can paste in our color code with a 7 again for gray, and we can type damage with a full stop. Now we're going to move on with an empty line of lore, and we can paste in a color code with a 6 for gold in color, item ability colon stormbreaker, so the name of the ability is stormbreaker. Then we can go ahead and do lore.add, paste in the 7 again, when right click, comma, strike all. We can go ahead and put lore.add again, paste in the color code, the 7 mobs around you in a 12 block radius. Then the last line of lore would be dealing, paste in the color code with a C for red in color, 1000. Then we can go ahead and move back to color code 7 for gray, damage. So that's all the lines of lore done. Now we can go ahead and do method.set lore as our lore. Now we're going to set the item to be unbreakable so that it doesn't take any damage, so that the item won't break. Yeah. So method.set unbreakable as true. Now we're going to make it so that when the player hovers over the item, they won't be able to see that it's set to unbreakable. So we're going to do method.add item flags, item flag.hide unbreakable. Then now we can go ahead and just do item.setItemMeta as our meta, and we can go ahead and do lightning x equals to our item. And with that, we are done with our items design. Now we just have to move back into our init class and type create lightning x, and move back into our main class and type item manager.init. So with that, we are all done with our items customization. So we can move on with the items commands. For the items commands, we are going to go ahead and create a new Java class, and we are going to call it commands. Then as usual, we're going to go ahead and do implements command executor. And then we can go ahead and create a public boolean, and we are going to call it on command. Then in the brackets, we can go ahead and type command sender, comma, command, cmd, comma, string label, comma, string, square brackets, args. Then we can go ahead and check if the sender of the command is a player first. So we can go ahead and do if exclamation mark for opposite of bracketed sender instance of player. Then if the sender is not a player, we can go ahead and do sender.send message. Only players can use that command. Then we can go ahead and return true. Then we're going to create an else statement. So if the sender is a player, we are going to do player equals to bracketed player sender. Then we are going to check if the player is opt or not. So we're going to do if player.isOpt. Then first of all, we're going to go ahead and create an else statement first. So if they are not opt, we are going to send them a message. So sender.send message, you are not allowed to use this command. Then we're going to move back into the if statement. So if the player is opt, we're going to compare the command that they send. So we're going to do if cmd.getName.equals ignore case, and for this case, the command would be give lightning x. So if the command that they type is give lightning x, then we're going to do player.getInventory.addItem, item manager.lightning x. So we're going to add the lightning x straight into their inventory. Then after all of this is completed, we can go outside of this else statement, and we can go ahead and return true. Now we can go back into our main class to list the command. So we're going to do get command, and in the brackets, we're going to put our switch marks, and we will need to put whatever we put over here. So we are just going to copy and paste that straight in so that we don't make any spelling errors. Then we can go ahead .set executor, and in the brackets, we're going to type new commands. So the commands is basically the name of the commands class. Then now we can move into our plugin.yml, and we can list the command there as well. So commands, colon, then we can go ahead and type the exact same command that we type both in the main class and in our commands class. So we can go ahead and type give lightning x over there and put a colon. Then we can put its description, that's not how we spell description, description as gives the player a lightning x. And the usage would be / angle bracket command angle bracket. So with that, we are basically done with the commands. Now we can move on with our items function. For the items function, we are going to go ahead and create a new Java class, and we are just going to name it lightning x. Then as usual for an events class, we're going to go ahead and type implements listener, and then we can move on with our add event handlers. So we're going to type add event handler, and the first thing that we're going to look at is whenever we hit the mob, we are going to strike that mob with lightning. So we're going to do public void on hit. We're just going to call it on hit, and in the brackets, we're going to put a entity damage by entity event and event. Then now we're going to check if the person that is dealing the damage is a player, and if the entity is getting hit is a living entity. So we're just going to do if event.getDamager instance of player and event.getEntity instance of living entity. Then we are going to go ahead and get both the person that does the damage and the entity that's getting the damage. So we're going to do player equals to bracketed player event.get damager, and we're also going to do living entity, and we're just going to call it living entity equals to bracketed living entity event.get entity. Then now we're going to check if the player is holding a is holding the lightning X or not. So we're going to do that by comparing the lore. So first of all, we're going to run some null checks. So if player.get inventory.get item in main hand.get item meta is not null, and player.get inventory.get item in main hand.get item meta.get lore is not null, then we're just going to move down one line just to make things slightly easier to see. Then now we're going to do player.get inventory.get item in main hand.get item meta.get lore dot contains, and in the brackets we're going to put our speech marks, and we're going to move into our item manager and get a line of lore that is unique to the item. For example, in this case would be this line, the item ability Stormbreaker, and we can go ahead and paste that right in. Then now we are going to strike the entity with lightning. So we're going to do player.get world.strike lightning effect. Now there are two different things. The first one is strike lightning effect and the second one is strike lightning. They are two different things. So for example, strike lightning effect will just strike the player with lightning with the sound and the lightning effect, but it won't damage the entity. However, if we just do strike lightning, it will have the sound and the lightning effect, but it will damage the entity. So in this case, we want to separately damage the entity. So we're going to do strike lightning effect only. Then we're going to do event.get entity.get location. So we're going to strike it at the entity's location. Now we are going to get the damage that's going to be dealt. For this, we are going to create a string and name it lore equals to player.get inventory.get item in main hand.get item meta.get lore.get, and for this part we're going to move back into our item manager, and we can actually see that the part that has the damage that contains the damage that we want to deal is over here. So we're going to count. This is 0, this is 1, and this is 2. So this line of lore is in the index number 2. So we're just going to put 2 here. Then now we are going to create an array list. So we're going to list string, and we are just going to call it lore split, and we are going to import list equals to a new array list, and in the brackets we're going to type arrays dot slist, and in the brackets we're going to type lore dot split, and we're going to split it by the spaces. So then now we are going to get the damage. So string damage equals to lore split dot get, and in this case we're going to go back into item manager. So for example, when we split the string into an array list by the space, this is going to be index number 0, this is going to be index number 1, and this is going to be index number 2 for the array list. So in this case, our damage is located right in the middle, which means that it is index number 1. So we're going to do dot get 1. Then we can go ahead and do damage equals to damage dot replace all, and over here we are just going to grab the color code symbol and paste it in and put a C. Then we are going to replace it with nothing. So basically we are removing the red color code. So we are just going to remove this part because we just want the 1000 damage. Then we can go ahead and damage the entity now. So we can do living entity dot damage, and we are going to do integer dot parse int damage. So it's going to convert the string to an integer. Now basically why we have to convert it into a living entity is because in order to damage it, entities will include things such as boats and minecarts, which won't be able to take damage. So in order to damage them, we will need to convert them into a living entity, which includes mobs such as skeletons and zombies. Yeah. So we need to convert them to damage them. Now we can move on to the function where we right click and it will strike lightning to all the mobs in a 12 block radius. So to do that, we're going to create another add event handler, and we're just going to create another public void, and this time we're going to name it on interact. Then in the brackets, we're going to put a player interact event and event. Now we're going to check if the player is right clicking. So event.getAction dot equals to action dot right click air, or event.getAction dot equals to action dot right click block. So this will just compare if the player is right clicking. Then if they are right clicking, now we're going to check if they are holding the X. So we're going to do if event.getPlayer dot get, that's not the correct one, dot get inventory dot get item in main hand dot get item meta is not null, and event.getPlayer dot get inventory dot get item in main hand dot get item meta dot get lore is not null. Then we're just going to move down one line just to make things slightly easier to see. Event.getPlayer dot get inventory dot get item in main hand dot get item meta dot get lore dot contains. Then we can just go ahead and copy and paste the line of lore inside. Now, the reason why we are creating all these null checks is so that our console won't get spammed with null pointer exceptions. Now we can move on with an enhanced for loop. So we're just going to type for entity colon event.getPlayer.get nearby entities 12, 12, and 12, all separated by a comma. Now what get nearby entities is, it's basically going to get all the entities around the player within a 12 block radius. So the enhanced for loop will basically loop through all the entities. Then now the first thing that we're going to do is check if the entity is a living entity or not. So we're going to do if entity instance of living entity, then we are going to convert the entity to a living entity first. So living entity equals to bracketed living entity. Then now we are going to do the exact same thing. We're going to strike the living entity with lightning. So living entity dot get world dot strike lightning effect living entity dot get location. Now we're going to move back with the damage. In this case, it's basically similar to what we did just now. String lore equals to, that's not the correct one, equals to event.getPlayer dot get inventory dot get item in main hand dot get item meta dot get lore dot get. Now we have to move back into item manager to count again. So in this case, the damage is in this line. So we're going to do 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's in the 7th, it's in index number 7 of the array list. So we're just going to type 7 here. Then after that, we are going to do the exact same thing. We're going to split into an array list. So this string lore split equals to a new array list. Angle bracket, in the brackets we're just going to type arrays.slist lore.split and put its rejects space. Then after we have split it, we can go ahead and get the damage. So string damage equals to lore split dot get. Then if we move back, it's actually the index number 1 again because it's 0 and this is 1. So we're just going to put get 1. Now as usual, we are going to do damage equals to damage dot replace all. Then we are going to paste in the color code again because we just want the damage and do not need the color code. So we're just going to set the replacement as nothing. Now we are just going to do living entity dot damage and in the brackets integer.parseInt damage. So with that, we are technically done with the items function. Now all we have to do is just go back into our main class and register event. So we are just gonna type get server, get plugin manager.register events new. We're gonna type the name of the class, which is lightning X, and put this. So with that, we are basically done with the coding part of the item. So we can go ahead and build the artifacts, and I'll see you in the test server. Alright, we are back in the test server, and we can go ahead and give ourselves the lightning X. And it will give us the lightning X. And if you go ahead and summon my favorite mob, the Ravage, that's not how we spell Ravager. If you go ahead and summon in the Ravager, we can go ahead and hit it for lightning effect. And if you go ahead and summon more, and if we go ahead and right click, yeah, lightning. Yeah, so that's the item done. So that's it for today's video, I guess. If you did enjoy today's tutorial, please leave a like and subscribe. You'll be greatly appreciated. And if you do have any more ideas for future tutorials or plugins, feel free to leave them down below in the comments. And with it all said, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you when I see you in the next video. Bye!